Danny Cole checked his delivery manifest for the third time as his small cargo ship descended through the purple clouds of Calvary Prime. The package in his hold was nothing special. A ceremonial gift from the human embassy to the Imperial Palace. Some kind of crystal sculpture meant to celebrate a royal wedding. He had carried stranger things across the galaxy, and he expected this job to be quick and simple. He was wrong about that. The landing platform was made of white stone that seemed to glow under the planet's twin suns. Danny stepped out of his ship and immediately felt small. The Calvary who waited for him stood almost 8 feet tall, with silver skin and eyes that held no visible pupils. They wore armor that looked like flowing water frozen in place, and they watched him the way cats watch insects. "Human courier," one of them said. The translator in Danny's ear made the words flat and cold. "You carry a gift for the Imperial celebration." "That's right," Danny said. He held up his identification chip. "Danny Cole, licensed courier. I just need a signature, and I'll be out of your way." The guard took the chip and studied it like it might be poisoned. "You will wait," he said. "Security protocols must be followed for all off-world deliveries." Danny had expected some delay. He had not expected 4 hours of standing in the sun while guards scanned his ship, his cargo, his clothes, and even his teeth. They made comments in their own language that his translator caught in pieces. Words like predator smell and death world creature came through clearly enough. He kept his mouth shut and his expression calm. The job paid well, and he had learned long ago that pride was expensive. When they finally let him enter the palace, a young Calvary in simple robes led him through halls that made human architecture look like children's blocks. The ceilings rose so high that Danny could barely see them. The walls were carved with scenes of Calvary history stretching back thousands of years. Everywhere he looked, he saw a beauty designed to make visitors feel small and primitive. It was working. His guide walked fast, and Danny had to jog to keep up. They passed through a courtyard, then another, then a garden filled with flowers that sang soft melodies when the wind touched them. Danny was so busy watching the flowers that he did not notice when his guide disappeared around a corner. He stopped and looked around. He was alone in a garden he did not recognize, surrounded by plants he could not name, in a palace where humans were barely tolerated. "Perfect," he muttered. He tried to retrace his steps, but only got more lost. The paths all looked the same, curving between hedges that reached over his head. After 20 minutes of wandering, he found a small clearing with a fountain at its center. The water fell in patterns that seemed almost deliberate, like the fountain was trying to spell out words. A woman sat on the edge of the fountain. She was Calvary, but smaller than the others Danny had seen. Her silver skin had a faint blue tint, and her eyes, when she looked up at him, held actual expression. She wore simple clothes, without any of the elaborate decorations he had noticed on everyone else in the palace. "You are lost," she said. It was not a question. "Very lost," Danny admitted. "I'm supposed to be delivering a package, but my guide vanished, and this place is like a maze." The woman smiled slightly. "It is designed to confuse outsiders. The architects believed that anyone who could not find their way did not deserve to reach their destination. Harsh policy. We are a harsh people." She tilted her head, studying him with open curiosity. "You are human. Last time I checked. I have read about your world, Earth, a planet of extremes where everything tries to kill everything else. And yet your species not only survived, but thrived." She gestured for him to sit. "I have questions, if you have time." Danny knew he should find his guide and finish his delivery. But something about the woman's voice made him stay. She seemed genuinely interested, not mocking or dismissive like the guards had been. He sat on the fountain's edge, keeping a respectful distance. "What do you want to know? What does freedom feel like?" she asked. "For ordinary people on your world. Not leaders or warriors. Just people like you. The question surprised him. He thought about it seriously before answering. It feels like choices, he said. Small ones, mostly. What job to take? Where to live? Who to spend time with? Nobody tells me what to do or who to be. I figured that out myself, and I live with the results. And if you make wrong choices, then I learn from them and make better ones. Danny shrugged. It's not perfect. Sometimes it's scary, but it's mine. The woman was quiet for a long moment. Something shifted in her expression, a sadness that she quickly hid. Thank you, she said. That is a good answer. Before Danny could respond, guards appeared at the edge of the clearing. They moved fast, grabbing Danny by the arms and pulling him to his feet with enough force to leave bruises. How did you get here? One demanded. This garden is restricted. I got lost, Danny said. I was just asking for directions. The guards did not care about his explanation. They dragged him away without another word, and when Danny looked back, the woman by the fountain was watching him with an expression he could not read. That night, Commander Harlan Boyd visited Danny's ship. Boyd was the human diplomatic attaché on Calvari Prime, a tired man in his 50s who had spent too many years being polite to people who despised him. You talk to the princess, Boyd said. His voice was flat with disbelief. Danny blinked. What? The woman in the garden. That was Princess Velthera Sinkai, the Emperor's youngest daughter, the one getting married in 3 days. Danny felt his stomach drop. She wasn't wearing anything fancy. I thought she was a servant or something. She doesn't like ceremony. It's one of the things that makes her unusual. Boyd rubbed his face with both hands. Look, just finish your delivery confirmation tomorrow and get off this planet. Don't talk to anyone. Don't wander anywhere. Don't give them any reason to make your life difficult. After Boyd left, Danny lay in his bunk and stared at the ceiling. He kept thinking about the princess's question. What does freedom feel like? He kept thinking about the sadness in her eyes when he answered. Sleep was a long time coming. The summons came at dawn. 2 palace guards knocked on Danny's ship with enough force to dent the hull, and they did not give him time to eat breakfast or even finish putting on his boots. They marched him through the palace at a pace that left him breathless, and they did not answer any of his questions. Danny assumed he was in trouble. Talking to the princess without permission had probably broken 100 laws he did not know existed. He prepared himself for fines, imprisonment, or worse. The Calvari were not known for mercy toward outsiders. The guards brought him to a great chamber filled with morning light. Hundreds of Calvari nobles stood along the walls in their flowing robes and liquid armor. At the far end of the room, on a raised platform, sat the emperor himself. Dalo Sinkai was ancient even by Calvari standards. His silver skin faded almost to white, his movements slow and deliberate. Beside him stood a tall male Calvari in black armor decorated with golden symbols. This, Danny guessed, was the groom Dot, and in the center of the room, wearing formal robes that seemed to weigh her down, stood Princess Velt Hera Dot. She looked different from the woman Danny had met in the garden. Her posture was stiff, her expression carefully empty. But when her eyes found Danny in the crowd, something flickered there. Recognition, and something else he could not name. The guards pushed Danny forward until he stood, alone in the open space before the platform. Every eye in the room turned to him, and he had never felt so exposed in his life. Human courier, the Emperor said. His voice was like stone grinding against stone. You have been brought here at the request of my daughter. She wishes to address you directly. Danny looked at Velthera. She stepped forward, her robes rustling against the polished floor. Danny Cole, she said, loud enough for the whole chamber to hear. You delivered an honorable gift to this palace without seeking recognition or reward. You answered my questions in the garden with honesty and kindness. For these reasons, I invoke the ancient right of the bride." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The groom's expression darkened. Velthra continued, "I choose you as my cavalier for the wedding ceremonies. You will guard my honor for the 3 days of celebration. You will stand beside me as my protector and witness. This is my right under tradition, and I claim it now." The chamber exploded into chaos. Nobles shouted objections in voices that overlapped into noise. The groom, Prince Zorath Ven, stepped forward with fury burning in his pupilless eyes. "This is an insult," he said. "A human? A primitive creature from a death world? You would have this thing guard your honor instead of a Kelvari warrior? Tradition allows me to choose any sentient being of honorable standing," Velthra replied calmly. "The courier meets those requirements. The law supports my choice. The spirit of the law does not," Zora snapped. "This makes a mockery of our ceremonies." Emperor Thalos raised one ancient hand, and the room fell silent. He studied Danny for a long moment, his faded eyes revealing nothing. "The princess speaks correctly," he said at last. "The tradition allows her choice. Whether it is wise is another matter." He looked at his daughter. "You understand what you are doing?" "I do, father." The emperor turned to Danny. "And you, human, do you accept this role? The duties are demanding. The ceremonies are long. Many cavaliers have failed throughout our history, bringing shame upon themselves and their charges." Danny's mind was racing. He had no idea why the princess had chosen him. He had no idea what being a cavalier actually meant. Every rational thought in his head screamed at him to refuse, to apologize for any offense, and to leave this planet as fast as his ship could carry him. But he looked at Velthra, and he saw the same sadness he had seen in the garden, the same trapped expression, and underneath it, something desperate, a silent plea that had no words. "I accept," Danny said. The chamber erupted again. Commander Boyd, standing in the diplomatic section with other off-world observers, put his face in his hands. Prince Zorath looked at Danny with hatred that promised violence. The nobles whispered to each other in scandalized tones. Only Velthra remained still. She gave Danny the smallest nod, barely visible, and something in her eyes softened. Gratitude, perhaps. Or relief. The emperor dismissed the assembly with a wave of his hand. Guards escorted Danny to a side chamber, where palace servants measured him for ceremonial armor. They worked in hostile silence, making clear through their expressions what they thought of a human taking such an honored role. An hour later, Commander Boyd found him. "What were you thinking?" Boyd demanded. His face was red with frustration. "Do you have any idea what you've done? The political implications alone could take years to untangle. If you fail these ceremonies, if you embarrass the princess or the empire, it reflects on all of humanity." "I didn't plan this," Danny said. "She asked me. What was I supposed to do, saying no in front of the whole court?" "Yes, that's exactly what you were supposed to do." Boyd took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. "The prince is furious. His family has been planning this marriage for decades. They see you as a deliberate insult, and they're going to make your life very difficult. I can handle difficult. Can you? Because the Cavalier ceremonies include physical challenges designed for Kelvari warriors. They're faster than you, stronger than you, and they've been training for combat since birth. You're a courier. You deliver packages." Danny thought about those words as Boyd left. The commander was right. He had no business being a cavalier. He had no training, no understanding of Kelvari customs, and no allies in this place, except maybe a princess he had spoken to for 10 minutes. But he had seen her eyes. He had heard her question about freedom. And he understood, without knowing, the details, that Velthra was trapped in something terrible, and he was her only way out. That evening, a servant brought Danny to a small room in the palace where Velthra waited alone. She had changed out of her formal robes into simpler clothes, and she looked more like the woman from the garden. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I know this makes no sense to you. I know you must think I'm using you for some political game." The thought crossed my mind. Velthera sat down across from him. "I need you to understand something. This marriage is not what it appears. Prince, Zorath's family has plans that go beyond joining two houses. They intend to destroy mine, and eventually to destroy humanity as well." Danny listened as she explained. The plot, the poison, the war that would follow her death, the carefully constructed evidence that would blame humans for everything. When she finished, Danny was silent for a long moment. "Why me?" He finally asked. "Why not tell your father? Why not go to the authorities? My father is old and surrounded by people who have been bought by Zorath's family. The authorities serve whoever pays them. I needed someone outside all of it. Someone with nothing to gain from betraying me." She met his eyes. Someone who answered honestly when I asked what freedom feels like. Danny thought about his small ship and his simple life. He thought about the galaxy-spanning conspiracy he had just stumbled into. He thought about walking away and pretending none of this was his problem. Then he thought about a princess sitting alone by a fountain, asking what freedom felt like. "Okay," he said. "Tell me what you need me to do." The ceremonial armor did not fit right. It was designed for a body 8 feet tall, with arms like tree branches, and even after the palace tailors adjusted it, Danny felt like a child wearing his father's clothes. The traditional blade they gave him was longer than his arm and heavier than anything he had trained with in his brief military service. He'd practiced with it in his quarters, trying to learn basic movements, and cut himself twice in the first hour. He was going to die in these ceremonies. He was certain of it. The palace gave him rooms near the princess's chambers, as tradition required. The walls were carved with scenes of ancient cavaliers performing heroic deeds, and Danny studied them while he tried to sleep. Most showed tall cavalry warriors defeating monsters or enemy armies. None showed small human couriers who had no idea what they were doing. On the first morning, Danny met Nira. She was Vilthara's handmaiden, a young cavalry woman with quick eyes and careful movements. She came to his room before dawn and spoke in whispers. "The princess trusts you," Nira said. "So I will trust you too. I have been gathering evidence of Prince Zorath's conspiracy for 3 years. Documents, recordings, witness statements. Enough to prove everything if it reaches the right people. Why haven't you used it?" "Because the right people are hard to find in this palace." Nara's expression was bitter. "Zorath's family controls too much. If I give the evidence to the wrong person, I will be dead within a day, and the evidence will disappear." Danny thought about Commander Boyd and the human embassy. "What about off-world channels?" "That is my hope. But getting the evidence out of the palace is difficult. Security watches everything." Nira handed him a small data chip. "Keep this hidden. It contains copies of what I have gathered. If something happens to me, find a way to get it to your people." Danny tucked the chip into his boot. It felt heavier than its actual weight. The accident started that afternoon. During a tour of the ceremonial halls, a balcony railing gave way under Danny's hand. He caught himself on a pillar and avoided a 50-foot fall, but barely. The guards who investigated called it old construction and bad maintenance. Their smirks told a different story. That evening, Danny practiced with his ceremonial blade in a training courtyard. A servant brought him a water flask, and something in the taste made Danny pause. He spat it out and poured the rest on the ground. His lips tingled for an hour afterward. When he reported it, the palace physician found nothing wrong with the water. Danny knew better. The next morning, his blade's edge crumbled during practice. The metal had been treated with something that made it brittle and useless. He reported this too, and received the replacement blade along with polite confusion about how such a thing could happen. The cavalry court watched these incidents with amusement. They made jokes about clumsy humans and fragile off-worlders. They placed bets on which ceremony would break him first. Danny heard the whispers and saw the mocking glances, and he kept his expression neutral. He would not give them the satisfaction of seeing him. Afraid. Veltera found him in the garden where they had first met. She moved carefully, checking for observers before she spoke. "Zorath is testing you," she said. "Small attacks to see how you respond. To see if you will break or run, I noticed." Danny showed her the healing cuts on his hands from the sabotage blade. "He's not very subtle. He does not need to be subtle. Everyone in the court already expects you to fail. If you die during the ceremonies, they will call it an accident or your own weakness. No one will investigate." Comforting. Danny leaned against the fountain where Velthera had sat during their first meeting. "What about the evidence? Can we get it to the human embassy?" "Not easily. Zorath has people watching every exit. Any message leaving the palace is scanned and reviewed." Velthera's hands twisted together in her lap. "I am sorry, Danny. I thought having a cavalier outside cavalry politics would protect you. Instead, I may have sentenced you to death. You gave me a choice. I made it." Danny looked up at the purple sky. "Besides, I've survived worse than some arrogant prince with too much money." He had not, actually. But saying it made him feel better. That night, Prince Zorath came to Danny's quarters. He came alone, without guards, wearing simple clothes instead of his elaborate armor. He stood in the doorway with his arms crossed and studied Danny like a scientist examining a particularly ugly insect. "You are either very brave or very stupid," Zorath said. "I cannot decide which. Little of both, probably." Zorath did not smile. "I am going to make you an offer. Human. Leave this planet tonight. Tell the princes you have fallen ill and cannot continue your duties. I will give you more money than you could earn in 10 lifetimes of delivering packages. And if I refuse, then I will make sure you suffer every moment until the ceremonies end. And when they end, I will make sure you do not leave this planet alive." Zorath stepped closer, towering over Danny. "The princess is a fool to trust you. You are nothing. A primitive creature from a death world, playing at being civilized. You do not belong here." Danny thought about the evidence chip in his boot. He thought about Velthera's desperate eyes and Nira's 3 years of patient work. He thought about the war that would kill millions if Zorath's plan succeeded. "No deal," he said. Something ugly flickered in Zorath's expression. "Then we understand each other." He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "I know about your handmaiden friend. I know what she has been collecting. If you continue as cavalier, she will be arrested for treason tomorrow. The penalty is death." After Zorath left, Danny sat alone in the dark for a long time. The choice was impossible. Stay and Nira dies. Leave and Velthera dies eventually, and the war happens anyway. He found Nira an hour before dawn. She was awake, as if she had been expecting him. "He told you," she said. "It was not a question. You need to leave the planet. Tonight. Take the evidence to Commander Boyd and get out before Zorath can arrest you." Nira shook her head. "If I run, he will know you warned me. He will retaliate against you and the princess. I'll figure that out. You just need to survive and get the evidence somewhere safe." Danny pressed a small device into her hand. "This is a map of the maintenance tunnels beneath the palace. I spent the last 2 days memorizing them while everyone thought I was lost. They'll get you to the embassy district without passing through any checkpoints." Nira looked at the device, then at Danny. "You did this for me? For us? I deliver packages," Danny said. "Getting things where they need to go is kind of my specialty." Nira almost smiled. She gathered her evidence and disappeared into the tunnels without another word. Danny returned to his quarters to find Zoroth's guards waiting. They did not speak. They simply beat him with professional efficiency, avoiding his face and any spots that would show beneath armor. When they finished, they left him on the floor with a simple message. Tomorrow's final ceremony would be his last day alive. Danny lay in the dark, bruised and bleeding, and thought about what he had to do. Running was still an option. Giving up was still an option. Every rational part of his mind screamed at him to take one of those options before it was too late. Instead, he pulled himself up and started practicing with his blade again. He had made a promise, and humans kept their promises. The first day of wedding ceremonies began with prayers at dawn. Danny stood behind Velthera in the great temple, wearing his ill-fitting armor and trying to ignore the pain from last night's beating. Every breath hurt. Moving hurt more. But he kept his back straight and his eyes forward, because that was what cavaliers did. The prayers lasted 3 hours. Cavalry priests chanted in an ancient language while incense filled the air with sweet smoke. Danny did not understand a word, but he stayed perfectly still the entire time. Some of the nobles watched him with surprise. They had expected the human to fidget, to grow bored, to show his primitive nature through restlessness. Danny had spent 18 months in military training before becoming a courier. Standing still was the first thing they taught. After prayers came the procession. Velthera walked through the palace grounds, while citizens gathered to see the bride. Danny walked 3 steps behind her, his hand on his blade, his eyes scanning the crowd for threats. The Kelvari people stared at him with open curiosity. Most had never seen a human in person before. One child pointed and asked her mother why the princess had such a small guardian. The mother hushed her quickly, but Danny heard. He kept walking. The afternoon brought the ceremonial challenges. These were ancient tests designed to prove the cavalier worthy of protecting the bride. For thousands of years, the best cavalry warriors had competed in these challenges for the honor of the role. Now Danny Cole, human courier, stood in the arena while nobles gathered to watch him fail. The first challenge was speed. Danny had to run through a course filled with obstacles while blades swung at him from hidden positions. The course was designed for someone with cavalry reflexes, which were 3 times faster than human reflexes. Danny made it halfway before a blade caught his shoulder and drew blood. The crowd laughed. The second challenge was strength. Danny had to lift ceremonial stones and carry them across the arena. The smallest stone weighed as much as he did. He managed to move one stone about 10 feet before his arms gave out. The crowd laughed louder. The third challenge was senses. Danny was blindfolded and had to identify objects by smell and touch alone. Cavalry senses were far sharper than human senses. Danny failed almost every identification. By now, the crowd was not bothering to hide their mockery. But the fourth challenge was different. The fourth challenge was endurance. Danny had to hold a position while weights were added to his arms and legs. The test continued until the cavalier collapsed or surrendered. Previous cavalry cavaliers had lasted anywhere from 20 minutes to 2 hours, depending on their training. Danny lasted 4 hours. The weights kept coming. His muscles screamed. His joints ached. Sweat poured down his face and his vision blurred. But he did not fall. He did not surrender. He held a position while the sun crossed the sky and the crowd grew silent with confusion. Humans evolved on a death world. Persistence was how they survived when everything else was faster, stronger, and more deadly. Danny's ancestors had chased prey for days without stopping. They had walked across continents. They had survived ice ages and famines and wars that should have ended them. Compared to that, holding a position for 4 hours was nothing. When the weights were finally removed, Danny collapsed. But he had passed. The crowd did not laugh. The fifth challenge was pain. A ceremonial brand was heated until it glowed orange, and the cavalier had to hold it against his own arm for a count of 10. Many cavaliers refused this challenge, accepting failure rather than permanent scarring. Danny held the brand for 15 counts before the judges pulled it away. The smell of burning flesh filled the arena. He did not scream. The final challenge of the day was psychological. Danny was placed in a dark chamber and subjected to sounds designed to trigger fear responses. Screaming, roaring, the cries of dying creatures. For Calvary, whose hearing was sensitive enough to feel sound as physical pressure, this challenge was genuinely terrifying. For Danny, it was just noise. Unpleasant noise, but noise he could ignore. He sat in the chamber for the required hour and emerged calm. When the challenges ended, Danny had failed 3 tests spectacularly and passed 3 tests in ways that made the judges uncomfortable. The nobles did not know what to make of him. He was clearly inferior to any Calvari warrior, but he was also clearly something else. Something they did not understand. At the evening feast, Prince Zorath found Danny alone on a balcony overlooking the gardens. "You surprise me, human," Zorath said. "I expected you to break during the endurance challenge. Instead, you outlasted records that have stood for centuries." "I'm stubborn," Danny said. His arm throbbed where the brand had marked him. "It's a human thing. Stubbornness without wisdom is just slow suicide." Zorath moved closer, lowering his voice. "Your handmaiden friend escaped last night. I know you helped her. I know where she is going and what she carries." Danny kept his expression neutral, but his heart pounded. "However," Zorath continued, "I am not going to stop her. The evidence she carries will never reach anyone who matters. My family controls too many communications channels. By the time anyone believes her, the wedding will be complete and the princess will be under my protection. Then why tell me?" Zorath smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Because I want you to understand how hopeless your situation is. You cannot save her. You cannot stop me. All you have done is delay the inevitable and mark yourself for death." He walked away, leaving Danny alone with the weight of his words. That night, Danny visited Velthora in her chambers. She looked exhausted, worn down by the ceremonies and the constant pressure of maintaining her composure. When she saw the brand on his arm, she reached out as if to touch it, then pulled back. "You did not have to do that," she said. "The pain challenge is optional." "Everything is optional," Danny said. "Until it isn't." He told her about his conversation with Zorath, about the evidence, about the hopelessness that the prince wanted him to feel. Velthora listened in silence. When he finished, she surprised him by smiling. "He is wrong," she said. "Nira did not go to the human embassy. She went somewhere else, somewhere my family has all eyes he does not know about. The evidence will reach the right people. You plan this?" "I plan for many possibilities." Velthora touched his hand gently. "Tomorrow is the final ceremony, the one where you surrender me to Zorath. But it does not have to end that way. There is an old tradition, almost forgotten. The cavalier's right to challenge the groom if he believes the groom unworthy." Danny understood immediately. A fight, a fight. Velthora's eyes held his. "If you win, the marriage is void. If you lose, you die." Zorath is a trained warrior. He has killed in duels before. The odds are not in your favor. Danny thought about the beating he had taken. The sabotage. The arrogant prince who wanted to start a war for power. He thought about Velthora's question in the garden, about what freedom felt like. "I didn't come this far to kneel," he said. Velthora squeezed his hand. "Then tomorrow, we fight." Danny did not sleep that night. He spent the hours until dawn practicing with his blade, ignoring his pain, preparing for a battle he would probably lose, but probably was not certainly, and humans had overcome worse odds before. The final ceremony took place in the Grand Temple at noon. Thousands of cavalry nobles filled the viewing galleries. Their silver faces turned toward the altar where Prince Zorath waited in his black and gold armor. Emperor Thalos sat on his ancient throne, watching with eyes that revealed nothing. Priests lined the walls, chanting softly, preparing for the moment when the bride would become the wife. Danny entered through the cavalier's door, his ceremonial armor reflecting the light from 1,000 candles. His body ached from the challenges and the beating. His arm throbbed where the brand had scarred him. Every step hurt, but he kept his pace steady and his head high. Velthra walked beside him, dressed in robes of silver and blue that flowed behind her like water. She moved with grace despite the weight of the fabric, despite the weight of what was about to happen. Her eyes found Danny's once, just for a moment, and he saw trust there. The ceremony followed ancient patterns. Prayers were spoken. Vows were exchanged. The emperor blessed his daughter and gave his consent for the marriage. Through it all, Danny stood at attention behind Velthara, his hand on his blade, waiting for the moment he had been dreading. Finally, the head priest turned to him. "Cavalier," the old Calvary said, "you have guarded this bride through 3 days of celebration. You have proven your worth through the ancient challenges. Now the time has come to surrender your charge to her husband. Kneel before the groom. Present your blade. Speak the words of blessing." Danny looked at Zorath. The prince stood with his arms crossed, a smug smile on his face. He expected Danny to kneel. He expected the human to give up, to accept defeat, to play his role, and then die quietly in some accident later. Danny did not kneel. "I invoke the cavalier's right to challenge," he said. His voice echoed through the suddenly silent temple. "I declare the groom unworthy of this bride." The crowd erupted. Nobles shouted in confusion and outrage. Priests dropped their ceremonial objects. Even the emperor leaned forward, his ancient face showing something like surprise. Zorath's smile vanished. "What did you say?" "I said you're unworthy." Danny drew his blade and pointed it at the prince. "I challenge you, here now, unless you're afraid to fight a primitive creature from a death world." The insult hit exactly as Danny intended. Zorath's face twisted with rage, and he drew his own blade in one smooth motion. "You want to die that badly? Then I accept your challenge." The priest cleared the altar. Guards pushed the crowd back. Within minutes, Danny and Zorath stood alone in a circle of open stone, their blades raised, while thousands watched. "Last chance to kneel," Zorath said. "I might even let you live if you beg properly." Danny shifted into the fighting stance he had practiced all night. "Come find out?" Zorath moved first. He was fast, faster than Danny had expected, and his blade came in low and hard. Danny barely blocked it, the impact jarring his arms. Before he could recover, Zorath was attacking again, a series of cuts that pushed Danny backward toward the edge of the circle. The crowd cheered for their prince. Danny blocked, dodged, retreated. He could not match Zorath's speed or skill. Every exchange left new cuts on his armor and skin. Blood dripped down his arms and face. Zorath was playing with him. The prince could have ended the fight already, but he wanted the crowd to see the human suffer. He wanted Danny to break before he died. Danny caught a strike on his blade and felt his arm shake. "That all you've got?" Zorath answered by kicking Danny in the chest, sending him sprawling across the stone floor. Danny's blade skittered away from his hand. The crowd roared. "Stay down," Zorath said, standing over him. "It's over." Danny pushed himself up. His ribs screamed. His vision blurred. But he found his blade and got back to his feet. Zorath's eyes narrowed. He attacked again, faster this time, not holding back. His blade cut Danny's leg, his side, his shoulder. Each wound should have ended the fight. Each wound should have kept Danny on the ground. Danny kept getting up, The crowd grew quiet. They watched the human rise again and again, blood flowing freely, his body failing him piece by piece. They had never seen anything like it. Their warriors were faster and stronger, but they also knew when to surrender. They knew when a fight was lost. This human did not seem to understand that concept. "Why won't you stay down?" Zorath demanded. There was something new in his voice. Frustration, maybe, or the beginning of fear. Danny spat blood and raised his blade. Humans are stubborn. It's a thing. Zorath charged with killing intent. He was done playing. His blade came in for Danny's throat, a strike that would end everything. But Danny had been waiting for this moment. Waiting for Zorath to lose patience, and over dash commit dot, he dropped under the strike, ignoring the pain that exploded through his body. His blade came up in a desperate arc, catching Zorath's wrist and sending the prince's weapon flying. Before Zorath could react, Danny was behind him. His own blade pressed against the prince's throat. The temple went absolutely silent. "I could kill you," Danny said. His voice was barely a whisper, meant only for Zorath. "You would deserve it. For what you planned to do to her. For the war you wanted to start. For all of it." Zorath stood frozen, his eyes wide with shock. "But I'm not going to." Danny raised his voice so everyone could hear. "The evidence of Prince Zorath's conspiracy against the imperial family and against humanity has been delivered to neutral parties. If any harm comes to Princess Velthora ever, that evidence will be released to every major government in the galaxy." He lowered his blade and stepped back, leaving Zorath standing alone in the circle. Emperor Thalos rose slowly from his throne. His ancient face was unreadable, but his voice carried absolute authority. "This marriage is void pending investigation. Prince Zorath will remain in custody until the truth of these accusations is determined." Guards moved forward to take Zorath away. The prince looked at Danny with hatred that promised future violence, but he did not resist. There were too many witnesses now. Too many questions that would need answers. Velthora reached Danny before he collapsed. Her arms caught him, supporting his weight, and she was crying. He had never seen a Calvary cry before. "You impossible man," she said. "You should be dead." "Probably," Danny agreed. His vision was going dark around the edges. "But I had a package to deliver. Had to finish the job." The human embassy's medical bay was small but well-equipped. Commander Boyd stood by Danny's bed, shaking his head slowly as doctors worked on the worst of the wounds. "You started a diplomatic incident," Boyd said. "You accused a prince of conspiracy in front of thousands of witnesses. You nearly died fighting someone who should have killed you in seconds. Sorry? Don't be sorry. Be proud." Boyd almost smiled. "Zorath's family is scrambling. The evidence Nira delivered is spreading through channels they can't control. The Emperor is launching investigations that will take years. And the Calvary are looking at humans differently now." "How so?" "They're asking questions. About Earth. About our history. About how a species from a death world produces people who won't stay down." Boyd patted Danny's shoulder carefully. "You did something important today. More important than you probably realize." After Boyd left, Velthora came to visit. She sat beside Danny's bed and took his hand gently, careful of the bandages. "My people will remember this day," she said. "Not as the day a human embarrassed us, but as the day we learned what humans truly are." "And what's that?" Velthora smiled. "People who stand up when they should stay down. People who fight for strangers. People who keep their promises, even when it costs them everything." Danny thought about that. It seemed like a lot of credit for just being too stubborn to quit. "One question," he said. "My original delivery. The package from the embassy. Did anyone ever confirm receipt? Because I still need that signature for my records." Velthora stared at him for a moment. Then she started laughing. It was a real laugh, full of joy and relief, and Danny realized it might be the first time she had laughed freely in years. "I will personally sign your delivery confirmation," she said. "It is the least I can do for my cavalier." Danny smiled and closed his eyes. He was bruised and broken and a long way from home. But he had kept his promise. He had delivered the package, and somewhere in the galaxy, the cavalry were learning that humans were more than primitive creatures from a death world. They were people worth knowing,